And welcome everybody to another edition of the Brody File. Glad you're with us. We're on the road this week. We traveled a long distance for this, about 1.2 miles. We're not in the DC Bureau, we're here. Faith and Freedom Coalition event, the road to majority. The event over, but boy oh boy, the headliner, Donald Trump, and he was on prompter, get ready, he wasn't unplugged, he was actually plugged in on this prompter speech, and he needed to be, because look folks, if Donald Trump is going to win the general election, he is going to need to make sure to win over those evangelicals, and he has some work to do. Have a look at some of that prompter speech.
We will restore respect for people of faith who dutifully raise their children, follow our laws and rules, and we have to really take care of our neighbors, because right now our neighbors are not being taken care of. We have to restore the rule of law on our border, in our government, no matter where it is.
Now look, we needed to get him off prompter, and what better way to do that? You know, we're the Brody File. We're everywhere. We're backstage, and that's right, we went backstage with Donald Trump into the green room to interview the Donald, to talk about evangelicals, to talk about this big evangelical meeting coming up with him and leaders later this month. Here is some of that interview. Here with Donald Trump. Mr. Trump, tell me a little bit about the speech today. It seemed to be where, obviously being on prompter, you wanted to get a few things across. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it was a combination of both, prompter and otherwise, but it was something I did want to get a lot of things across. I wanted to spell out the good and the bad. I wanted to say what's going on with our country, some of the good things and some of the bad things, but right now there aren't too many good things.
Tell me a little bit about what you need to do to convince some skeptical evangelicals that voted for Ted Cruz, did not vote for you. What do you need to do? Do you think you have some work to do?
Well, you always have work to do, but I will say that, as you know, I won with the evangelicals, and I won many of the states with the evangelicals, and the evangelicals were absolutely incredible to me, and I'll never forget it. They believed in me, I believe in them. And states that I wasn't supposed to win with evangelicals, as you know very well, I ended up winning and had some very big victories. We had some massive victories, really landslides. And a lot of those states were evangelical states. So there's always work to be done, but we've done really well with the evangelicals. It must be because I do your show with you so much.
I know it's, I can confirm that.
It must be the answer.
All right, let me ask you later this month, that meeting with evangelical leaders, what do you hope to get out of it exactly?
Well, I just look forward to it. Ben Carson called me. He'd love to do it. He wanted to do it. And he was the one that brought it up to me, and I said, yes, you know, Ben left and endorsed me, and he's a terrific guy, wonderful man, and so I'm doing it for that reason, and I've actually found out it's going to be quite an important meeting, so I look forward to it.
You mentioned the founding of this country out in the speech. There's a lot of folks that that push back against this idea that we're not a Judeo-Christian nation. Do you push back as well? I mean, in other words, do you believe this is a Judeo-Christian nation?
Well, and that's the way it is, and it's been, look, we want freedom for everybody, and we want good things for everybody, but everybody has to be cognizant of the fact that we need a safe country, and that's why I talk about radical Islamic terrorism. You know, it's a problem. You look at what's going on in France today, where they may cancel a major soccer tournament, one of the biggest tournaments, because they don't know if they have enough security to handle the potential threat. I guess threats have been made. And you look at whether it's San Bernardino or Paris or all of these things, or the World Trade Center. So we have to be smart, we have to be vigilant, and we have no choice.
Last question. The word on the street among evangelicals is they want you to tone down the rhetoric. They want you, forget that everybody talks about more presidential, forget about that. But they want you from that moral perspective to kind of tone it down, and how do you feel about that?
Well, you have to be who you are, and I mean, I've gotten the largest number of votes in the history of Republican politics, by far, and so I want to keep, keep doing what we're doing, but if you ask me to tone it down, I'll tone it down.
Donald Trump here on the Brody File. We're going to see a lot more from Donald Trump. By the way, they're saying we're going to get on his plane. That'd be nice. I'd like to use the gold bathroom, because you know he's got the thing with the gold. You know it's happening. All right, when we come back, Abigail Robertson with us. It's millennial time. What's the haps? Millennials, Donald Trump, can he win him over? The story when we come back. And welcome back, everybody, to the Brody File here at the Road to Majority Conference Faith and Freedom Coalition. All right, look, we looked around, and yeah, there's folks that have been around here 30, 40 years, but come on. We need to talk to millennials. It definitely makes me look hipper, for sure, though I've got a bad hip, but that's a separate issue. Millennials, we have a segment, get ready, what's the haps? All right, so how do millennials feel about Donald Trump? Abigail Robertson on the case from somewhere here. Abigail?
Thanks, David. This week we're talking about faith, freedom, and Donald Trump. Trump is officially the GOP's fearless leader for 2016, but has he convinced Christian conservative millennials to hop on the Trump train, or are they still cruising for a bruising? I hit the crowd to find out.
I am surprised he made it this far. I will say, as a millennial, I don't fully back him up, but one reason why I came also is to hear him speak, because I think that would be really interesting, to just kind of see where he's planning on leading the election now that he's the only candidate.
Personally, I feel that it's something that's been a long time coming. People have been upset, they've been angry about electing Republicans that don't really come to fruition of their promises, and so I feel like that Donald Trump is a representation of the people who have been wanting some type of voice, someone to be their leader, someone to be their strong, rallying cry behind. So yeah, I just think it's an opportunity for them to have a voice.
So would you feel comfortable voting for him in November?
I'm a precinct chair for the Republican Party in my county, and so I'm a Republican, and so I'm going to vote as a Republican.
Well, I think at this point what you have to do is make a very prudential judgment. As somebody that's a constitutional conservative, it initially left a very bad taste in my mouth when he was nominated by the party, but at the same time, the same thing could be said when John McCain was nominated, when Mitt Romney was nominated. Many people were disgruntled on really both ends of the party, the more moderate end and on the more constitutional side. But frankly, at this point, what it comes down to is, for me, this is the United States Supreme Court. With the late Justice Antonin Scalia now no longer on the bench, we're going to have to look at, particularly as conservatives, what's going to define the nature of this country for the next generation. So for me, it really is a matter of getting conservative justices appointed to the court, because if we don't have conservative justices on the court, it effectively nullifies any real impact that me and my generation are going to be able to have on American public policy within the next generation. That's why I think it's critical that at this particular juncture, while my ideal candidate may not have been nominated, I have to come back and support the nominee, because we can't have Hillary.
How do you feel about Trump being the nominee?
It's pretty interesting. He has a really strong character and a lot of personality. I think he has a lot of very good ideas for the United States. Some of the comments that he's made in public kind of worry me, but I don't think that he actually really means those necessarily. I think we have a lot to look forward to if he can continue being presidential, and I'm interested to see what he'll do.
So would you feel comfortable voting for him in November?
You know, honestly, I gotta say, I think that with so much that can still happen in the election, especially with Hillary's indictment, which draws a lot of question marks in my mind, I'm kind of putting off my vote until probably the last second, really. A lot of stuff can still happen, so who knows.
Sounds like he has a little more campaigning to do if he wants to win over this crowd. Good thing this election season is far from over. Back to you, David.
Abigail, what am I saying? Abigail Robertson here on the Brody File. All right, when we come back, pro-life, Donald Trump, does it match up? Well, look, there's a pro-life group saying, hey, Hillary Clinton is the far worse alternative. That story when we come back. And welcome back, everybody, to the Brody File here at the Road to Majority Conference Faith and Freedom Coalition event. Donald Trump spoke. It was fun. Rewind the show. We talked to Donald Trump earlier. Amber C. Strong, our producer extraordinaire, and we put her on the air. Hey, that rhymes. But look, she is down in North Carolina doing a story about the Susan B. Anthony list, a big pro-life organization who has said, look, okay, so Trump, we might have a few issues with him, but hey, you got to vote Republican. Why? Because Hillary Clinton is the alternative. The story from Amber C. Strong.
These volunteers are connecting to voters the old-fashioned way, going door to door sharing the importance of electing a pro-life president.
We have the largest grassroots ground game in the state of North Carolina. Our efforts are a direct counter to Planned Parenthood.
And that effort is far-reaching, so far, in fact, that they've knocked on more than 100,000 doors in North Carolina alone. The Susan B. Anthony list is on the ground in battleground states across the country, and the mission is simple: elect a pro-life president. But when the decision is between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, well then the answer isn't always so obvious. It's no secret Trump shares a shaky relationship with the pro-life community. The once pro-choice candidate has stumbled when asked about the issue.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is that there has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah.
But when it's a decision regarding abortion, this group prefers a candidate searching for an answer over one who has clearly made their choice.
We've been kind of uncomfortable at one point also with him, but he is on the campaign trail. He has been on record now to be pro-life and to swing pro-life, and we want to hold him to his commitments on the campaign trail. We've got two candidates, and the fact of the matter is Hillary Clinton is way too radical for the country.
Williams believes the key is to tell people about Clinton's specific stances on abortion. For example, Clinton recently praised Planned Parenthood and took a stand against a congressional push for the pain-capable bill. That's a law banning abortions after 20 weeks.
I've been on record in favor of a late pregnancy regulation that would have exceptions for the life and health of the mother. I object to the recent effort in Congress to pass a law saying after 20 weeks, no such exceptions.
Advocates for the law say the evidence clearly states that a baby can feel pain after 20 weeks. They see this information as particularly important to women and Hispanics, who may be pro-life but have deep reservations when it comes to a President Trump.
One of the things that we're most excited about this cycle is our outreach to Hispanic voters and Democrats and women, because we know that these are traditional Democratic voter groups, but they often don't know just how extreme the Democratic position on abortion is.
For SBA list volunteer Angie Dow, the mission isn't political, it's personal.
I am only here because my mother said no to abortion. My parents wasn't planning on having another child. But my mother accidentally got pregnant with me, and even though it was a very high-risk pregnancy, she chose to risk her own life to have me.
And it's that sort of motivation that keeps canvassers like Angie going, one foot in front of the other and one door at a time. Amber Strong reporting for the Brody File.
Amber C. Strong down there in North Carolina. She clearly wanted to get out of the office, but it was a good story. Anyhow, thanks, Amber. When we come back, Evangelicals and Trump, we talk a lot about that big meeting coming up in New York later this month. Two folks that are going to be in that room. We talk to them next. And welcome back, everybody, to the Brody File. All right, look, time now. Evangelicals and Trump. Oi Gavolt. It goes to the Oi Gavolt level at times, for sure. But these evangelical leaders, hundreds of them, are going to meet with Donald Trump later this month up in Trump Tower. I'm sure there will be a lot of nice food, probably a really expensive buffet, but that's besides the point. We like food here at the Brody File. Two folks that we spoke to that are going to be inside that meeting: Penny Nance, Concerned Women for America; Tony Perkins, Family Research Council, stalwart conservatives, pro-life. You better not mess with them at all, and they're going to be in the room with Trump. Here's some of that. Tony, let me ask you a little bit about, so I heard there's a meeting in New York with Trump, and I understand you're going to be there. Evangelical leaders, obviously, with Donald Trump, late June. What's the expectation? What do you hope to accomplish in that meeting exactly?
Here's how this kind of evolved is, as the race began to narrow and the options began to be few, is that I think many evangelical leaders and evangelicals are not supportive, have not been supportive of Donald Trump. Some have, but most have not. They were lined up with other candidates. So the idea was, how do we have a conversation so that for those that would like to be for Donald Trump can find a way to be for him? And that's really what this is about. It's about have a conversation. How do we close that gap? There is a gap, but given what the options are and the challenges facing our nation, how can we close that gap? And so this is an honest attempt to simply have a conversation. I've been working with my good friend Bill Dallas, who really, Ben Carson was the one who ran point and brought this before Donald Trump and helped get it all set up. And so I'm hopeful that this will be an opportunity to have a conversation. It's not going to be speeches. There's going to be it'll be questions from evangelical leaders and social conservatives from across the country.
So then, what does he have to do exactly in this meeting? What do you want to see specifically?
Well, I think here, look at this. He does not have a track record on public policy. His track record on issues actually is kind of counter of the ground he's staked out right now. And that's okay. People can change their minds. We're all about people changing their minds, okay? However, what's this look like? How can we really anchor ourselves to his commitments on these issues? And I think there's a couple of things that he's going to have to do. One, I think his vice presidential pick is going to be extremely important, because I think it needs to be somebody who has a relationship with the evangelical community, which he really has not had. And I think it's going to have to be someone who has a track record, who can say, yes, this is a person who actually believes in these things and has advocated for them and taken public stands on them. And he's going to have to be committed that that person is going to be in his inner circle in his administration. I think that's critical. I think he's already spoken somewhat to the issue of judges. That is really the overriding issue in this election, is the Supreme Court. Yeah. We have a vacancy. There'll be more vacancies. Who do we want picking those Supreme Court justices? We know what Hillary Clinton will do. We know what Donald Trump has said. He gave a list of 11. I think he's got to explain that a little bit more, who he's going to look to for counsel and guidance on that, like the Federalist Society and groups like that. And then I think a good faith gesture would be that he is not going to manipulate the Republican Party platform, because that's right around the corner. Yeah. So I think those issues, I don't think he can necessarily transcend the theological differences from a standpoint of evangelicals and the centrality of their faith. He can't rewrite the narrative of his business career, but I think he can say, I'm going to protect your right to believe. I understand how important you are to America and to America's moral fabric, and I'm going to fight for you. I think communicating that is going to go a long way.
Let's start with this event, co-sponsoring for the second year in a row.
That's right.
Tell me why events like this are important, what they can do for the grassroots specifically.
I think it's really fantastic to bring the grassroots together, to let them get to know each other. Concerned Women for America brings in our state directors and our Young Women for America college presidents. We have about 34 of just those young women here, plus our adult leaders. We'll be doing breakout sessions, training, but there's also a synergy when you bring activists together, and I'm excited to take advantage of that. We have a lot of work to do.
Let me transition to Donald Trump for a moment. What a shock.
Yeah.
How's the psychotherapy go? No. Yeah. But look, I mean, I think there is this kind of period where everybody kind of has to go, okay, now what do I do?
Right.
And what's been that process like for you exactly?
Well, and as you know, and like many people, I had candidates throughout the process that I supported until finally I, at the end, ended up endorsing Ted Cruz, and then of course he dropped out. And so, like most people, unless you're a complete political hack, you need some time to kind of, recalibrate and think through what it means for you. And so, I've just been thinking it through. I've said very clearly, Donald Trump has my vote. I know Hillary Clinton. I remember the ugly Clinton years. I remember Bill Clinton's antics, and I remember also the way that women suffered at their hands, the way that they were treated when they dared to come forward and point out the way that they were treated and mistreated by Bill Clinton, and how the Clinton team, with Hillary Clinton as part of that, demeaned and disparaged them. So I remember all of that. I was walking around wearing an I Believe Paula button, referencing Paula and Jones in my 20s. I'm not ready to go back to that. I will work very hard. And then, of course, there's all the key issues I care about. Faith and the issues of religious freedom, the issues of life, of course, our Supreme Court nominees. I will work, very hard to make sure that she doesn't become president. And so, as part of that calculation, we understand we have two choices. And so we're thinking through what that means with Donald Trump.
Tell me a little bit, the strategy for CWA for the general election, how you deal with a candidate like Donald Trump. I mean, so where do you, I know the Susan B. Anthony list is kind of, they're really focusing more on Hillary. What do you do? How do you kind of convey the message you want in this general election?
Well, our Susan B. Anthony list, which Marjorie Downfield is a close friend of mine, I love them. They're a PAC. We are a 501c3, we're a C4. What we normally do in any election cycle is simply register people to vote and urge women to vote. You know, there's 60 million evangelical and faithful Catholic women in this country. If we could turn them out to vote, we could swing an election any way we wanted. Unfortunately, about half of them aren't registered to vote, and about on any given Sunday, you know, sitting next to you, one of those people are not going to be voting. And so we've got to make sure that we talk to our own people. We do a lot of that kind of work. And so, you know, really what needs to happen for, I believe, for success for Donald Trump is he needs to make sure that he is able to speak to those women and encourage them. They're the foot soldiers in any campaign. They're the people that are willing to go door to door for a candidate, or willing to phone bank, willing to volunteer their time, put their baby in their stroller and go do work for a candidate. And they're really, you know, they're the heartbeat of any campaign. You can't really buy that affection. And so you've got to earn it. You've got to win it. And I think he took some positive steps forward today, and I look forward to seeing, you know, what he does next.
But he's got work to do.
Of course.
Penny Nance on the Brody File. All right, up next, it's a Donald Trump oy vey moment of the week. And welcome back, everybody, to the Brody File. All right, before we leave you, you know what we do every week. Get ready. It's a Donald Trump oy vey moment of the week. Well, look, he recently did an interview with Cal Thomas, a well-respected conservative Christian writer, and here's what he said about Jesus. Get ready for it. Jesus to me is somebody I can think about for security and confidence, somebody I can revere in terms of bravery and in terms of courage, and because I consider the Christian religion so important, somebody I can totally rely on in my own mind. Well, you know, good for you, Donald. I mean, for sure, brave, all that stuff. It's all true. Don't get me wrong. But he is the risen Messiah. He is Jesus, after all, our living Savior. Maybe some of that could have been put in, but we'll work with you. Don't worry. It's a process. We'll talk. I'm sure we're going to talk to Donald Trump in the near future about all of that. That does it for this week on the Brody File. Until next time, everybody, God bless. Have a great week.